Welcome to the Sales Lab.
So it is really important to identify kind of in solution selling language, who's your champion, right? Who's your economic buyer, who's your technical buyer, who's likely to have objections, understanding where those objections come from and how you're going to handle those objections. Are they price objections? Are they cost objections? Are they technology objections? And they can be, again, I remember early in my career, they can be something as simple as one little thing a competitor does that you don't do, right? Yeah. And if you can't effectively, it's unlikely you can change your product in a sales process to meet that. Sometimes you can, unlikely that you can. So that's why you have to build a bigger economic case, and you have to understand, well, what's the value of that one thing? Because your competitors also have their champions. They also use solution selling, right? So they may be somebody who says, well, this product does feature ABC. One that I can think of, this was 30 years ago, so not pretty relevant today, but gives you an example how small these could be. So if you think about trends, which are where we plot measurements from sensors on a chart over time. So think about a line chart, right? What's a temperature or a pressure or a speed of a piece of equipment, et cetera, over time. But a competitor that says, oh, we can put 16 pens or 16 data items on one trend. At the time, the piece of software I was selling, we only do 8. Now, never mind the fact that when you put more than about 4 of those on one chart, you can't tell what's going on.
It's uninterpretable, yeah.
But it became a technical objection. 16 is greater than 8, that's better. We should go with a competitive vendor. So what you have to do in those cases, right, is really understand the value, understand what you're selling, and then really understand the value. Okay, who's that one feature valuable to and why? Yeah. We ended up winning a lot more of those than we lost, but every once in a while we'd lose one of those because somebody had well, this number's bigger than this number, so therefore that's the. And again, those are cases where you're not really engaged in a sales process, would be my argument. You're engaged in a bid against a specification or something like that. And in that case, you're really only vending. You're providing a product at a price, and you're competing against a lot of other people, and the customer may or may not be happy with the choice that they make. So with solution selling, you can understand and navigate around those types of objections a lot better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an interesting, we sometimes will talk about prioritizing, understanding how the customer prioritizes the different problems or the different needs or the aspects of the solution. Yeah, I really want a car that's red, okay, well, here's some red cars, but they're the wrong style, they're the wrong shape, they're the wrong engine size. You'd like it if it were red, but if that's number 20 on your priority list, then, maybe we focus on the bigger stuff.
Yep. And if you were red and white and black cars and you didn't know that there was a green or a gray one, you might you don't even understand what your options are, right? So that's part of the role of a consultative salesperson is to broaden that field of view sometimes for your customer.
Absolutely. And how often are the people you're talking to, highly technical themselves? And then how often are they, I imagine people, C-suite folks are maybe more interested in ROI and ease of implementation than show me the spec sheet. I mean, what's the percentage breakdown of those things? Yeah, boy, it's hard to put an exact percentage on it because it varies from engagement to engagement. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think when you're dealing with an engineer who has to solve the problem, and that's a market we sell to a lot, they can be very technical because that's their nature. Not all engineers, not to generalize, right? But they're technical thinkers. Management, you start to get up into operations manager, VP of operations, people who have either P&L or larger KPI responsibility will tend to take a broader view of things, right? Yeah. So yes, it's got to technically fit or it's got to technically work. That's kind of non-negotiable. We have to see a way to a solution that provides value. But there may be more than one way to skin a cat, so we're willing to look at other things. And then in very large sort of platform sales opportunities, by the time you're talking to folks at the C-level about specific opportunities, like with our customers and our customer conferences, we talk with a lot of folks at senior levels of management. But in a specific sales engagement, once you get to that level, the technicalities are pretty much resolved, right? That's a gate to even get to that level of. And typically at that level, you don't have 10 people competing with you. You may have one other, or you may have. And I always say this too, like the biggest competition. I didn't make it up. It's a fact of anything. The biggest competition you always have is we're just not going to do anything. Right. We're just going to continue with what we have. So that's always your competitor. Even if you're the only person at the table at that point, you've got a competitor, which is, well, we could just not spend the money and live with things the way they are and see how it turns out next year. But at that point, you might have one other or maybe 2 other competitors. Typically, the senior executives don't want to spend a lot of time with vendors trying to dissecting the whole thing. Yeah,
they have teams. They have teams that will vet those and screen those before you get to that level. So typically, at that level, it's about the economics, and you want to be able to provide a very strong economic case. So if you're presenting to business executives You don't want to talk about speeds and feeds, and you don't want to talk about the features and functions of the product. You want to talk about the economic benefit that of solving the problem and how your approach can help them solve that problem.